Has your kitchen sink ever backed up on you? I'm not talking about a massive, completely blocked catastrophe. I mean that slow, agonizing drain, where the water takes just a little bit longer to go down every day. You pretend you don't notice it until one evening you're doing the dishes and the dirty water starts pooling back up into the basin. For most people, the default reaction is to run to the grocery store, grab a bottle of Drano for 15 bucks, pour it down, wait a few minutes, and call it a day. Or, if it's really bad, you call a plumber, which sets you back $200 to $500 and leaves you waiting for days. Chances are, you've done both of these things, more than once. But today, I'm going to tell you a secret. You might never have to do either of them ever again. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jared Min. Every day, I'm here exposing the everyday secrets they don't want you to know. In February 2021, Texas was hit by its worst winter storm in decades. The power grid collapsed. Pipes froze over, and then, as temperatures finally rose, they burst on a massive scale. But once the water supply was finally restored, homeowners in Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio all woke up to the exact same problem. Their drains were completely backed up. Years of grease that had been quietly building up inside their pipes were triggered by the extreme cold, hardening into concrete-like blockages. Plumbers were booked out for weeks. Emergency call-out fees skyrocketed to $500 minimum. Hardware stores sold out of chemical drain cleaners in hours. Social media was flooded with desperate cries for help. Then, in the quiet corners of the comment sections, a pattern emerged. Elderly women from rural Texas started replying, and their advice was almost identical. Boil a kettle of water, grab some baking soda from the pantry, and pour in some white vinegar. One woman in Lubbock even posted a video showing her kitchen sink draining perfectly just 10 minutes later. How much did it cost her? About 40 cents. You might think this is just some old wives' tale or folk remedy. But let me tell you, this 40-cent trick is one of the oldest recorded chemical cleaning techniques in human history. Variations of it were used to maintain hundreds of miles of aqueducts in the Roman Empire. A century ago, it was common knowledge in every American farmhouse, as basic as knowing how to boil an egg. So why don't you know about it? The answer isn't a conspiracy. The answer is economics. A 40-cent bottle of vinegar and a $1 box of baking soda? No corporation is getting rich off that. No profit margin means no advertising budget, no prime real estate on supermarket shelves, and absolutely no one reminding you that it exists. But a bottle of Drano sells for $15, costs pennies to make, and guarantees you'll be back to buy another one in a few months. A plumber visit costs $300 to $500, and they're more than happy to come out several times a year. Suddenly, there are billions of reasons to ensure that the only thing you see on the shelf is that branded bottle. This is how knowledge gets replaced. It's not a conspiracy. It's the silent, ruthless logic of profit margins and shelf space. When Clorox started selling bleach in branded bottles in California in 1923, the chemical industry stumbled upon a highly lucrative business formula. Take an incredibly cheap compound, slap a flashy label on a plastic bottle, and sell it for dozens of times the cost of the raw materials. The first commercial drain cleaners hit the market around 1925. A generation later, common sense became lost knowledge. Today, the United States plumbing services industry pulls in over $100 billion a year. Meanwhile, a box of baking soda is $1, and a gallon of white vinegar is $3. Do the math. All right, history lesson over. Now, let's talk about what actually matters. What is really going on inside your pipes, and why your previous methods were probably missing the mark entirely. Most people have a very vague understanding of a clog. They just think some gunk got stuck, and they need to pour something down to flush it out. But different clogs have entirely different mechanisms. Your kitchen sink's main enemy is what the plumbing industry calls FOG, fats, oils, and grease. You fry some bacon, roast a chicken, or wash a butter-coated pan. Hot, liquid grease goes down the drain. As it travels down the pipe, it cools off, solidifies, and coats the inner walls, just like wax hardening inside a glass tube. Then, food scraps and coffee grounds start sticking to it. Layer by layer, the pipe narrows. The enemy in your bathroom drain is completely different. It's a combination of hair and soap scum. Hair is virtually impossible to dissolve chemically. It acts like a net, catching the sticky residue of soap and dead skin cells, slowly forming a dense, tangled clump. But there's a third enemy hiding in every single drain in your house that most people never even realize is there: biofilms. This isn't just regular dirt. These are living colonies of bacteria and fungi that have set up camp on the walls of your pipes, secreting a sticky slime to anchor themselves in place. Biofilms act as the structural glue that holds clogs together, and they are exactly what causes that nasty odor wafting up from the drain. Knowing these three enemies is key to understanding why a one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work. Now, let's talk about where that viral internet hack gets it wrong. You've seen the video a million times on social media. Someone mixes baking soda and vinegar in a drain, watches the dramatic fizzing, and claims that the explosive pressure will blow the clog right out. This is a myth. When baking soda meets vinegar, the reaction produces sodium acetate, water, and a ton of carbon dioxide gas. That gas is what causes the impressive fizz. But your home's plumbing system isn't a sealed pressure cooker. It has vent pipes going up to your roof, specifically designed to let gases escape safely. The CO2 simply takes the path of least resistance and goes right up the vent. It never builds up nearly enough pressure to blow out hardened grease. Plus, mixing an acid and a base neutralizes them both. The resulting liquid is essentially just slightly salty water. So why did generations of farmers and homemakers swear by this method? Were they wrong? No, they were right, but not for the reason most people think. The secret is that this method is a two-stage process, and the second stage is almost entirely ignored by modern internet tutorials. Stage 1. Those bubbles are actually doing a very specific job. They are mechanically scrubbing the biofilms, literally knocking the microbial colonies off the pipe walls. Studies show that bicarbonates are surprisingly effective at disrupting biofilm formation. They actually interfere with the chemical signaling that bacteria use to organize into colonies. The moment you pour it in, you're launching a purge against the microbes gluing your clogs together. But what actually clears the grease clog is stage 2, the hot water flush. Your grandmother never just poured in the baking soda and vinegar and walked away. She always finished by slowly pouring a kettle of boiling water down the drain. This is the step that actually does the heavy lifting. The high heat melts the solidified grease back into a liquid state. Add a few drops of dish soap, and the soap molecules encapsulate the melted grease, allowing the water to carry it all the way to the main sewer line. This method isn't some magic potion. It's a two-step strategy. First, use the bubbles for biological purging and deodorizing. Second, use boiling water and dish soap for thermal melting and emulsification. Each stage targets a different problem, and together, they form a complete solution. As a side note, let's talk about what those commercial cleaners are actually doing to your pipes. The active ingredient in most Drano-style products is sodium hydroxide. The chemical reaction creates intense exothermic heat, potentially spiking the temperature inside your pipes to nearly 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The problem? Most houses built after the 1970s use white PVC pipes, which are only rated for a maximum of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Over time, chronic use can cause these pipes to silently fail at the joints, creating hidden leaks behind your walls. By the time you notice it, you're looking at a repair bill in the thousands. There's also a risk that hardly anyone warns you about. If you use a bleach-based cleaner and follow it up with an ammonia-based product, the chemical reaction produces chloramine gas. It's a toxic irritant that, in high concentrations, can land you in the ER. Poison control centers in the United States receive thousands of these calls every year. Commercial cleaners aren't completely useless. They might work for a severe one-off clog. But using them for routine maintenance is like using a flamethrower to light a birthday candle. Technically, it works, but the collateral damage is completely disproportionate. Alright, we've covered the science. Now let's talk about how to actually use this, broken down into 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, a slow-draining kitchen sink. Your primary weapon here is heat. You don't even need baking soda and vinegar yet. First, boil a large pot of water. Once it's at a rolling boil, squirt a generous tablespoon of dish soap directly into the drain. Then, slowly pour the boiling water in. Don't dump it all at once. You want the heat to fully penetrate the grease lining the pipe walls. The heat melts the solidified fat back into a liquid, the dish soap encapsulates it, and the water flushes it away. Repeat this 2 or 3 times and that'll handle most kitchen grease clogs. If there's still no improvement after the 3rd try, it means the buildup has been there a while. That's when you break out the 2-step baking soda and vinegar method, pour in half a cup of baking soda, follow it with half a cup of white vinegar, quickly cover the drain with a wet cloth, wait 30 minutes, and finish by flushing it with boiling water. Scenario 2. A clogged bathroom drain. In this case, baking soda and vinegar won't help much, because hair is made of keratin, which is notoriously difficult to dissolve chemically. You need physical intervention. Go to the hardware store and buy a barbed plastic drain snake. It costs about $2. Feed it down the drain with a twisting motion, let the barb snag the tangled hair, and slowly pull it out. If you don't have a drain snake, a straightened wire coat hanger with a small hook bent at the end works just as well. Once the hair is out, tackle the leftover soap scum and mineral deposits by pouring in some heated white vinegar. Let it sit for an hour, then flush it with hot water. This is the exact same chemical reaction Roman engineers used to clear limestone scale 2,000 years ago, and it works just as flawlessly in your bathroom today. Scenario 3. Monthly preventative maintenance. This is where the baking soda and vinegar combo truly shines, not as an emergency rescue, but as prevention. Most people wait until the sink is completely blocked before taking action, but the blockage is just the final result. The root cause is the biofilm that has been quietly growing for months, slowly gluing grease and food scraps together. If you do this preventative maintenance once a month, the vast majority of clogs will never happen in the first place. Once a month, go to every drain in your house, pour in half a cup of dry baking soda, follow it immediately with half a cup of white vinegar, and quickly cover the drain with a wet cloth to direct the scrubbing power of the bubbles down into the pipes. Then, leave it alone for 30 minutes. During that half hour, the bicarbonates are breaking down biofilms, neutralizing odor-causing compounds, and inhibiting the growth of bacterial colonies. After 30 minutes, boil a kettle of water and slowly pour it down to flush everything out. Total cost for monthly preventative maintenance for your entire house? Less than $1. Compare that to the $300 average for an emergency plumber visit, or the $150 plus you can easily spend a year on commercial drain products that are quietly eating away at your pipes. Finally, let's talk about when you actually need to call a plumber. I'm going to shoot straight with you here, because this method is not a magic bullet for everything. If multiple drains in your house start backing up at the same time, say the kitchen sink, the shower, and the toilet all acting up at once, that is almost certainly a main sewer line blockage, usually caused by tree roots invading the underground pipes. No amount of baking soda and vinegar is going to clear living tree roots. In that situation, you absolutely need a professional. The same goes for hard object obstructions, like a kid flushing a toy down the toilet. Chemical methods are completely useless against solid physical blockages. This 40-cent method will handle about 90% of everyday household clogs. For the other 10%, calling a plumber is totally worth it, and every penny is justified. The goal isn't to never call a plumber. The goal is to stop calling a plumber for problems you can solve with what's in your pantry. One last thing. During the 2021 Texas freeze, some families waited weeks for a plumber and spent hundreds of dollars, if not more. Other families walked into their kitchens, boiled a kettle of water, and fixed the problem themselves in 10 minutes for 40 cents. The difference between those two families wasn't luck, and it wasn't money. It was knowledge. Roman engineers used spoiled wine to maintain an empire's water system. French chemists gave us a miraculous white powder. American farmers and miners combined the two to keep water flowing in the harshest conditions, treating it as just another everyday chore. This knowledge used to be as common as knowing how to boil an egg. Then, the consumer market replaced that knowledge with products, not through a conspiracy, but through the silent, ruthless logic of profit margins and shelf space. You can't patent a box of baking soda. You can't brand a gallon of white vinegar. And you certainly can't charge $300 for a 40-cent solution. That is exactly why no one reminds you that it exists. But now, you know. Next time your sink starts draining slowly, don't reach for your wallet. Walk over to your pantry, see if you have some baking soda and vinegar, put a kettle on the stove, and let a 2,000-year-old piece of chemistry solve the problem for you. That's all for today's video. I'll see you in the next one.